Alrighty, well, we are two past, so we'll go ahead and kick it off. I have a lot of content. I can be pretty guilty of stuffing a lot of content into 1 hour sessions. I'm a big fan of delivering the most value as possible in the shortest amount of time, but oftentimes that means I talk really fast. So if I am going too fast, please don't hesitate to let me know in the chat and I'll try to slow down a bit. But again, really just wanted to make sure we're going to get the most amount of value possible in this short hour that we have together. I said it earlier, but if you were not on the call yet, if you see me looking over to the right, I have to click admit on every person who comes into the waiting room. So I'll be looking over there to make sure we are not missing anyone. But welcome. Thanks again for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about how you can get a climate job through something called the hidden job market. I know the hidden job market is a bit of a buzzword lately and how networking is super important. And I know when I was in your shoes, when I was looking for a job in climate, this whole concept was really intimidating to me. So wanted to do a session on one, what the hidden job market even is, and then two, how you can employ some tried and true strategies to access this hidden job market and ultimately land a job in climate through networking. If we have not met before, hi, my name is Natalie Lavery. I head up marketing and content for Climate People. I'll get to who Climate People is in 1 minute, but wanted to start with a brief introduction of myself as I got my job through the hidden job market. So I wanted to kind of tell you that story to lay the framework for today's discussion. Before I tell you that story, some background on me, hosted over 100 climate job seeker events and have mobilized hundreds and thousands of people to get a job in this space. Prior to Climate People, I started my career working in grassroots environmental advocacy. I was working for Greenpeace and the Sierra Club and really loved having that climate impact through my work. But boots on the ground campaigning was just not the best use of my skill set. So ended up leaving, got a job at a more traditional tech company, and for the first time loved the work that I was doing, but had a really hard time staying motivated when I didn't really care about the greater impact of that work. So started job searching and came across Climate People. It was simply a LinkedIn post where Climate People was looking to hire a recruiter. I am obviously not a recruiter and have no intention of becoming one, but I was just really intrigued that there could be an entire recruitment agency dedicated to climate solutions. So I reached out to Brendan, Climate People's founder. Him and I started having a discussion about what he was building. He told me he was looking to hire a marketing, a communications, and event person, and I was in the right place at the right time and was able to create my own job through that conversation. So again, job was never posted, but here I am 3.5 years later. So we're going to talk about some of those strategies a little bit more. So hinted to this, but Climate People, we are a climate technology recruitment and advisory firm. So essentially operate like any traditional recruitment agency would. However, we only work with companies who are working on climate solutions. So they give us their jobs, and then we tap into our network of job seekers and hopefully fill those jobs. We're a pretty small team. We're a team of three, so only ever have around 14 or so jobs posted at any given time, but want to get more people working in climate than obviously that many people. So that's where my job comes in. That's where these types of events come in to hopefully give you all the skills so that you can upskill your job search and hopefully land a job in this space. So with that, what we're going to talk about today again is the hidden job market. We're going to start by going over some of the current trends and having a better understanding of where the market currently is. We're going to talk about where the climate jobs are, how you can find them, and then the bulk of the discussion is going to be on the hidden job market, how to pinpoint your climate interest, creating a market map of companies, and then networking within those companies. We'll also save a few minutes at the end, again, for some questions. So save those questions for the end. I will not really be looking at the chat throughout this call. So yeah, again, when I open it up, save those questions there so they don't get lost. Matt asks if we will be sending the recording over. Yes, as soon as we hang up here, I'll send the slide deck with all of the links that I talked about, also with the recording. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Perfect. And I gave a quick disclaimer earlier on. I'm not sure if all of you are on the call. I am aiming to make the most of your hour. I know better than anyone that when you're job searching, time is of the essence. So there's a lot of information packed into this one session. Not expecting you to understand and walk away with all of it now. That's why we'll be sending the recording out. So I tend to go pretty quick, but don't worry, you'll have the resources in the recording to go back and check in on at a later time. Cool. So where are we now? What happened in 2023? Again, if you are job searching, you know that it's a really hard time to look for a job. That is across all industries. It is not specifically restricted to climate. It is just a hard time to be a job seeker. We are currently in an employer-centric market. So that means that employers can be picky. They can have really stringent job descriptions and they can still get people in their door. Also means that there's far more applications going to these limited numbers of jobs. So kind of all of these negative stats really point to the importance of standing out and how you can best stand out in your job search. And the key to that is networking. So a little bit deeper than that, when we think about this bad job market and kind of where we are, our first inclination is to say, what happened in 2023 to cause the hardships that the job market is currently enduring? But in reality, we need to look further back than that. We need to ask ourselves, what happened in 2021 and 22 to create the implications that we're seeing in 2023 and we're seeing now? So in 21 and 22, climate was new. It was really exciting. There was a lot of innovation. Investors were excited. It was a good market. So money was flowing to a lot of these climate companies. Money was going to companies that had a really cool idea. They had a deck and they had a good idea. They had no proven traction, and yet they were still getting a lot of funding. But in 2023, when greater macroeconomic conditions began to stall, the companies that had traction, so the companies that had more than a deck, they actually had traction, they were still getting money. In the companies that were new in 2023, they were also still getting money. But those companies in the middle, the companies that got money but didn't have that proven traction, that was coined the valley of death. They were no longer getting the same amount of funding that they were. And of course, from a employer or a job seeking landscape, when you no longer have that funding, that means layoffs. That means funding freezes. And of course, that means more people coming to these founders looking for even less jobs. So again, it was just some weird market conditions that created a really hard job market. So when we look at where the climate jobs are and how to find them, this is a really good resource called Climate Tech List. Essentially, they're an aggregate of all climate jobs posted, get funneled into their platform. They have a whole section on their website for charts, and you can analyze kind of where all the jobs are. So when you go to their landscape map, you can see here, these are where all the climate jobs are. They're filtered by climate sector. So yellow is energy, red is transportation, and so on and so forth. And you can see here that the big squares are the big companies that have the most amount of jobs posted. The smaller squares down in the bottom of the screen here are those smaller companies that have not so many jobs posted. The reason that I have this slide in this presentation is to remind all of you or to inform all of you that the vast majority of jobs in climate are at startup companies. So yes, of course, there's the Teslas on here, the Octopus Energies, all of these other more established enterprise type companies, but the vast majority of climate companies are startups. So of course, Tesla is going to have a lot of jobs posted compared to these small little niche companies. However, if you're looking for a job in climate, I'm going to encourage you to not exclude all of those really niche startup companies because that is where the vast majority of jobs are. And then on top of that, the whole point of this presentation is the hidden job market. So a lot of times climate companies that are startups don't post their jobs. They are filling their jobs through their networks. So these companies may not even be on an aggregate site like Climate Tech List. However, they are still hiring. So again, whole point of this slide is just to keep in mind that a lot of jobs are never posted. So when you are going about a networking centric job search, it's really important to remember that you cannot solely rely on job boards and things like this because a lot of these jobs never make it to those boards. So what's happening now in 2024? We are seeing a more optimistic funding landscape. Companies are still definitely being reserved with their funding, so they're not hiring as much as they were, but we are seeing it being a bit more of a positive trajectory. Again, the vast majority of jobs that are posted are falling into those larger, more established companies. However, the key here is there are a lot of jobs that are not posted. The ones that are making it to job boards are the job postings, not necessarily the opportunities. And we know that there are more jobs out there than what we are seeing on job boards. So awesome. How do you go about this job search? The first step to getting a job through the hidden job market or getting a job in climate is to ask yourself what your risk tolerance is. So be really honest with yourself before you dive into any of the stuff I'm going to outline today. Where do you want to be? Do you want to work at a startup? I know there are a lot of concerns. I've heard probably everyone out there about why people don't feel comfortable working at startups. So is that you? Would you rather work at a medium or enterprise-sized company, or do you want to work at a startup? If you want to go work at the Teslas of the world or any of those larger, more established climate companies, traditional job search techniques are going to be the way to go. I don't think you're going to have much luck going to Tesla and trying to create your own job. You may, but they have established HR teams, they have in-house recruiters, they have processes that they have to follow. So you're going to have to jump through a lot more hoops to create your own opportunity at a Tesla of the world. However, if you are interested in going and working for a startup, that's where the networking centric approach really comes in. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Again, just a reminder that the vast majority of jobs and job opportunities within climate are at startup companies. So again, if you're going on the left side of that graph and you're interested in medium and enterprise companies, there are dozens and dozens of resources out there to help you for that. There are, and these don't have to be specific to climate either. If you want to get a job at a enterprise climate company, traditional job search techniques really fit into play here. There's just a few resources on the screen here, but yeah, any traditional job search technique will really apply here. However, again, if you're looking for a startup company, this is where things are going to get different. The vast majority of companies are startups, so you need to network your way in. So again, this is the little baby boxes on the top right of that climate tech list graph that we went over. Awesome. So this stat is kind of the foundation for the entire discussion today. As we talked about a few slides back, the key to getting a job in climate is finding ways to stand out. How can you stand out in a sea of applications when founders are getting inundated with applications? Climate people, we post all of our jobs and we see an average of 650 applications for every job that we post. We hear from our clients that they're pretty on par with that, if not getting more. So yeah, when you think of an early stage climate startup, it's typically a founder and a few team members. The reason that they are looking to hire is because they need help. They're already stretched thin. They don't have time. So think of these people. They need to hire. They have no HR team or recruiters. They post their job. They get inundated with 1,000 applications. They already don't have time. Going through those applications takes a lot of time. So oftentimes they'll just not even look at them and then end up relying on their networks to fill those jobs. Many of Climate People's clients have hired us despite not having a job posted. So they'll come to us and say, I need to hire a software engineer, but they will not even have that job posted on their website. We will go out, we will find software engineers, and we'll send them back to them, and that job will never get posted. So again, really kind of proving the point here that there's a lot of job activity going on behind the scenes that is not public knowledge in a lot of ways. So it's really important for all of you to try to tap into that, because if you're tapping into something that's not posted, you're not competing with thousands of people because you are tapping into something before it's been publicized. Again, easy apply features on LinkedIn and AI tools have even made these application numbers rise higher than they were. So again, bottom line here is a lot of applications. How can you get ahead of that? How can you stand out and really prove your worth to these companies? To do that, I'm going to encourage you to think like a recruiter would and create your own opportunity. What do I mean by that? So Climate People's #1 business development tactic. So the #1 way that we get any of our clients, so we get any job on our job board, is we find a really strong candidate and we pitch their background to the company. So we find a candidate on the bottom of the screen here. This is an example of a product professional. We met this product professional. He has an incredibly strong background. We thought critically about which companies we think he would be a good fit for. And we reached out to those companies. These companies were not hiring product people. They did not have a job description on their website saying that they wanted to hire product people. But again, we thought critically about this person's background, the skill sets that this person had, and which ones would be a good fit for these companies. And then we wrote a pitch. This is an example on the bottom of the screen. Hi, first name. I'm Natalie from Climate People, a climate technology recruiting firm. I wanted to reach out because we have a candidate who'd be a great fit for your company. They have a mechanical engineering background from blank and bring 10 years of experience in strategy. They were the 15th employee at this company and played a pivotal role in their growth leading to the IPO. More recently, they have been spearheading strategy for a thriving battery company. Do you have a need for an operations or commercialization person on your team? I look forward to hearing from you soon. I sent this email to about 10 different product professionals at climate startups. I think 8 of them got back to me and wanted to talk to this person, and this person ended up getting hired at one of these jobs. So if we can do this, if we can meet stellar candidates and pitch their background to companies, why can you not do that for yourself? Why can you not have a really strong pitch on your background? Find companies where you would be a good fit, where you could be helpful to them, and pitch yourself. Have a conversation and sell your skills. Again, this works exceptionally well for startup companies because these people don't have time. A lot of times, early stage founders are experts in their space. If they're engineers and they started a software company, they have a really strong technical background, but they don't know a lot about sales. They've never hired a salesperson before. If you are in sales and you write a really strong and compelling pitch, sell your skill set to them, it is going to work out. They're going to want to talk to you. And even if it doesn't lead to a job right now, it is going to expand your network. It's going to help you find positions. And then lastly, on top of that, when you create your own opportunity, you can really do the things that you like doing. You can do the things that you're good at, and you can really create your own job. And a lot is not talked about that. That is super impactful for doing good work. Awesome. So that's the background of the hidden job market. How can you really start doing this for yourself? First step is to pinpoint 3 climate solutions. So niche down your areas of interest within climate. Then you're going to do a market map of the companies that are operating within that space. And then you're going to start networking within those companies. We are going to break down all of these steps in more detail now. So the first step is to pinpoint 3 climate solutions. I cannot tell you how many job seekers I have talked to who say, I want a job in climate. I just want a job in climate. I don't care. I just want to make an impact. And that's great, but that's actually hurting your job search. It is far more impactful if you are talking to a leader of a battery company and you go into that conversation and say, I've always been interested in energy and grid. I'm really, really fascinated by energy storage for these reasons. Here are some of the issues I've discovered. I would love to learn more about how your company is working at the intersection. That sounds like you know what you're talking about, as opposed to, I just want to work in climate. I just care. So when you niche down, when you pinpoint a few solutions that you're interested in, you're going to have far more luck really conveying that knowledge and conveying that passion. You're also really going to want to figure out where your skills are needed and transferable. So before you start networking, have a really good understanding of where you're needed. If you are going to pitch your skill set to a company, it really needs to make sense, and you really do need to be able to help them. We'll dive into that a little bit more. So how do you pinpoint your interest? If you're just learning about climate, you're probably pretty inundated with dozens of resources and feeling kind of overwhelmed by where you want to go. So won't dive into all of these now. Again, I'll share this slide deck so you can go back on your own time. But these are some great resources just to learn about climate tech as an industry and start to understand which climate verticals are interesting for you. The next step is determining that need and that timing. So again, you want to make sure that when you are networking with a company, your skill set is aligned, that you will be able to actually help this company. And even if you're transitioning to a new industry, understanding that your skills are going to be directly transferable. So the first step to doing this is to look at job boards. I know we've talked a lot about how a lot of these jobs aren't posted and you're going to be looking for opportunities and necessarily jobs. But if you niche down so much that when you're looking at job boards, there's not a single job posting for you, that means you might need to go a little bit more broad. So I guess an example to bring this to life a little bit. Say I am a marketing professional who wants to work in nature-based solutions at a pre-seed company. If I go to Climate Tech List, I put in marketing specialist, pre-seed companies, nature-based solutions, and those filters are all put in. I click search, and there's no jobs that pop up. That probably means that there's not enough of a demand for that skill set. So maybe I need to look at larger sectors like energy or transportation, and then maybe there'll be more opportunities for me. From there, you want to determine the funding stage of the company. So very generally speaking, earlier funding stages, so like pre-seed to seed stage companies, those founders are typically looking to build out their science and engineering teams. And then as they get more money, that's when they typically hire more business supporting roles. So like marketing, sales, product. So again, there's exceptions to this, but generally speaking, if you're in science and engineering, you're probably going to find more opportunities at those early stage companies. Whereas if you're in marketing, communication, sales, any of those more supporting roles, you're probably going to find more opportunities at those later stage companies. So check those out, make sure you have an understanding of where these companies are, so on and so forth. Next is transferable skills. This one is so important, and I know it's oftentimes another buzzword, but it's really, really important. And essentially, a transferable skills is defining yourself by your skills and not your job titles. So I know the vast majority of us are transitioning industries. So we're going from an outside industry trying to break into climate. So what skills between outside industry and climate really overlap, and how can you leverage those skills to prove that you can do this job even if you've never had a job in this industry before? Transferable skills are also a little bit of twofold. They're also role type. So in a traditional sense, when you think of transferable skills, you might think of going from marketing to product and how those skills can be interchangeable. So that's one way. And then another way is what we've already talked about of going from an outside industry to climate. So role type and industry type really fit in here as well. So when you are transitioning to climate, I have met so many people who, when they want to get a new job, when they're trying to transition to a new space, they tend to throw everything up in the air and say, I need to start fresh. I need a new job title. I need a new industry. I need a new team size. I need everything because they want to change. And that's kind of just human nature to follow that path. However, the easiest way to transition to a new industry is to limit as many variables as possible. So then that way, you're only focusing on transferable skills from industry to industry as opposed to trying to change everything up. So what I mean by this is if you are a SaaS B2B product manager at a growth stage company in, say, healthcare, your easiest transition to climate is going to be to look for SaaS B2B climate roles at a growth stage company. That way, you only have to focus on the transferable skills between healthcare and climate because your role looks really, really similar to the one that you held before. So here would be a great example of this to bring it to life. So say you were a marketing and analytics manager at an AI startup, and now you're looking for a marketing and analytics manager role at a green cement company. Some of your transferable skills may be proficiency in B2B and B2C outreach, experience in a rapidly growing field, expertise in growth marketing and taking a product from inception to scale. Even though you weren't holding a climate job before, you still were really involved in the Green Employee Resource Group to show that you're invested in this space. You also were working at a startup, so you can be a generalist, you can wear a lot of hats, you're scrappy. Then you also have proficiency in working in a disrupting industry. AI is a disrupting industry similar to green cement. So again, just an example here of some of these transferable skills and how even you can prove that even if you don't have climate experience, you still have this experience that you can apply to climate and you can do the job even if you've never held that exact title before. Perfect. So that first step, we covered narrowing down your interest, figuring out which climate solutions you're interested in, and making sure that there's a need for you and that you're timing it right. After that, you are going to create a market map of companies. So again, this is a step where you're not necessarily just going to look for jobs. You're going to look for opportunities of different opportunities where you think you can make an impact. So again, you're going to stick to those climate solutions that you just outlined in the first step. So say you're interested in batteries, you're interested in solar panels, and you're interested in grid innovation. You're going to stick to those three solutions, and you're going to start to find the companies that work at this intersection, and you're going to put them on your market map. So this is a template that I'm going to drop in the chat right now. It's just a Google sheet that I made where you can track your market map. So essentially you're going to duplicate this template and you're going to, it has a sheet, it has a column for company name, for website, for funding stage, for if they have a demand for your skill set. Essentially, it's just going to keep your market map a little bit organized. So they're going to start there, and then you are going to start putting companies on this map. So again, your market map is essentially, okay, I pinpointed my three solutions. Now I need to figure out which companies should I be targeting based on the information that I just accumulated in that first step. And you're going to put these companies on that Google sheet that I just dropped in the chat. First step is to go to LinkedIn. So say you pinpointed composting as one of your solutions. You're going to find one composting company. So you go to LinkedIn, you type in mill. Mill's going to come up. You're going to click on their LinkedIn page and you're going to click follow. Then LinkedIn is going to pop up a little box that suggests other companies that are similar to Mill. You're going to look at all of those companies. If they fit the parameters that you outlined in step one, you're going to add those companies to your market map. From there, you're going to click follow on those companies. LinkedIn's going to pop up another box with similar companies. You're going to keep going and keep going until you have some companies that fit your parameters on your list. LinkedIn's not always accurate, so make sure you're double checking that it actually fits your parameters before you add them to your list. Another really crucial step here is to connect or follow with the leaders of these companies. So say you go to Mill, you put Mill on your market map. Then you're going to go to their people tab and you're going to find who you think you would report to at this company. A big networking mistake that I see people make really often is that they would go to Mill and the only person that they would try to connect with is Mill's CEO. I guarantee you that Mill's CEO is a very, very, very busy individual, and it's probably not very likely that they're going to respond to your message. However, if you are an entry-level marketing person and you add Hannah Brown right here, the marketing manager at Mill, on LinkedIn and send her a nice heartfelt message, she probably is going to have some more interest in talking to you because your paths are pretty directly related. So, point being, don't just add the CEOs. Try to find the person who you think you would work with and add them because they're going to have more time for you. And an internal connection is an internal connection, no matter if it's the CEO or if it's a mid-level manager at the company. All right, perfect. Next, you're going to go to incubators and accelerators. So as we know, a lot of climate companies are startups, and a lot of startups are funded by VC funds. They're funded by incubators. They are parts of accelerator programs. And a lot of these accelerator programs are solution specific. So Activate, for example, is science type companies. Breakthrough Energy Fellows is energy companies. So you're going to find these different accelerators. You're going to click on their website. You're going to go to their portfolio. You're going to scroll through their list of companies. Again, if they're relevant to you, you're going to add them to your market map. Climate Tech VC, which is now known as Sightline Climate, has a running list of climate accelerators. It's linked right here in this slide that I will share after the fact. That is a great place to start to find these accelerators and their portfolio companies. There are also tons of pre-made market maps, so you don't have to do all of the work if someone else has already done it for you. So if you're interested in carbon capture, typing in carbon capture market map into Google, finding those pre-made market maps, looking at those companies, if they're of interest to you, adding them to your market map, so on and so forth. Last step is to use climate-specific job boards. Again, we're not solely looking for job boards and job opportunities. However, if a job's posted, you might as well put it on your market map. So go to Climate Tech VC, go to Green Jobs Board, go to the LinkedIn Climate Tech Job Collection, scroll through those, find the companies you're interested in, add them to your market map. So to quickly recap what we've covered so far, the first step is we created our parameters. We decided 3 climate solutions that we are interested in. We decided what types of jobs we are going to look for and our impact that we can make. From there, we created a market map of companies that are working at that intersection. Again, we weren't strictly looking for jobs. So even if we found a company that was right in the intersection of all the parameters I outlined, but they weren't hiring someone in my position, we still put them on our market map because we think we could make an impact there, even if they weren't hiring for that role at this time. We created a list of our market map. You can include as many companies on here as you want. I would start with definitely having 10. That's a good starting place, but feel free to add as many as you can find. The last step is to network within these companies. So we're going to stick to our market map. We are going to network within the companies that we've outlined. We're going to join the relevant Slack groups and communities, and we're going to try to get to know people in this space so that we can ask for referrals and really remain connected. This is another template that I put together to help track your networking conversations. I just dropped that in the chat. I know better than anyone that when you're talking to dozens of people, these conversations all tend to really blur together. So really important to take notes of what people said to you, how you met them, all of those good details so that when you reconnect with them in the future, you can remember what you talked about and don't get them confused. So would highly recommend also duplicating this template and using it to track these conversations. There's also some suggested planning tips in there so that you can go into this conversation knowing what to ask, how you would help this person, and really being prepared. Some very general networking tips is approach your networking like you would a relationship. People want to feel good about these connections. If you just send someone a message and say, hey, I saw you're hiring, I'd love to connect, they're probably not going to respond to you. Versus if you send them a message on LinkedIn that says, hey, I've been following the work that you're doing. It's really impressive. I'd love to be where you are in 5 years. Do you have 20 minutes to spare so we can talk through how you got there? They're going to feel good about themselves. They're going to want to talk to you. So really approach networking as a relationship as opposed to a transaction. If you take anything from this conversation today, I really do think that is the key. I cannot tell you how many messages I get on a daily basis from people who send me 15 paragraphs on their background and say, I love to talk. And I don't have the capacity to respond to those people. Versus if I get a really heartfelt message from someone that I can tell that they're invested in what I'm building and they want to learn more about me and then offer to help me, I'm going to be far more inclined to respond because it's a relationship. It's not just a transaction. So really keep that in mind as you're going about this. I know that a lot of times people look to network because they are desperate to get a job. I've been there, but don't make that obvious. Make it obvious that you want to learn and you want to build relationships. And I promise it's going to be much more helpful down the line. So the key with these networking conversations is to articulate your value, to prove to this person how you can be an asset to them and why they should have you on their team. So a really good workflow to follow. So you found the companies, you found the people within those companies that you want to connect with. Step one is to send a connection request with a simple note. Step two is to send a more in-depth message, have a bit of a back and forth conversation, try to get a call scheduled, have a really good call where you were prepared, you had talking points, you understood that since you initiated the conversation, it's on you to come to prepared. After that call, you're going to send a thank you note. Then you're going to stay in touch throughout time goes on. And then when a job is created, they know of you, or you can try to continue to network your way into the role. So here's an example of a message that you could send. So you connect with them, you found the person. Hi, I noticed your interest in nature-based solutions. I wanted to connect. We have a shared passion for this important area. I'd love to learn more about your work. Hopefully they're going to accept this connection request. From there, you can send them a longer message that says, thanks for connecting. I see we're both members of MCJ. I've been following your company and I'm really impressed with your focus on this. I'm transitioning my 20 years of B2B sales experience into nature-based solutions. I'm new to this space and here are some of the things I've learned recently. I'd love to get your perspective on this question that's been gnawing at me as I do more research. Can you spare 20 minutes to chat? I'd love to pick your brain. This is a great message because it's not like, hi, I'm looking for a job. I love your help. You're saying that you invested, you've learned a lot about the space. This person's the expert. You're putting them on the pedestal. You're making them feel good about their work in this space. And You want to learn more about something they're incredibly passionate about. Do they have 20 minutes? They're probably going to respond and give you some time. When they respond, it is incredibly important to prepare for this call. I've said it already, but this is your time to shine. If you initiate a call with someone, do not go into that call expecting them to have the agenda. Make sure you have your plan. You know what you want to ask them. You know how you're going to ask them. You know what you can help them with. Again, you're treating this like a relationship. So you're being prepared and you're trying to help them at the same time that they are trying to help you. So before you go into this call, be really, really clear on these things. So what sets you apart? Why is that company on your market map? Are you really good at fundraising? Are you really good at website design? What are those things that are your selling points? This networking conversation is going to be your opportunity to show them the value that you can bring to their company. So, what are some impacts that you've made in the past? Like you said, you're really good at fundraising. So, how have you helped other companies fundraise? What were those tactics that you used? And how would you apply them to this company? If you were in this company or in this position, how would you help this company? Make sure you understand that. Reflect back on your transferable skills that you outlined in step one. So even though you don't have climate experience, what are some of the things that you've done in a previous industry that are directly transferable to climate? Directly ask them. I know this one's weird and people get kind of hung up on it, but ask them if they plan on hiring someone with your skill set. Again, a lot of these companies aren't going to have jobs posted. But if you're in marketing and you're really good at website design and you know their website's pretty bad, they probably know that too. You don't want to go into this call and say, your website's terrible. But you could say, hey, I have a background in website design. Here's how I've helped companies. Here's some of the stats that prove I'm really good at this. Are you looking to improve your website, or are you planning on expanding your website? Are you going to hire someone? Then you're going to know exactly their plans for the future. And then finally, leave this call understanding their pain points in regards to your skill set. So I know that sounds a little bit confusing at first, but it's super important to understand their pain points in regards to your skill set. So if you're in sales, what is your client acquisition strategy? Are you having a hard time converting people? Do you get a lot of warm leads, but they never actually convert? Understand what they are struggling with and how you could help. You don't have to have the answers right now in this call, but you do need to understand what they are struggling with in terms of your skill set. And you can ask. It is okay to ask them these questions. It's going to show you're prepared and that you're interested. After this conversation, you need to sit down, reflect on the pain points that they outlined. So you asked, and they told you that their database and the back-end software is just really not working for them, and they have a lot of bugs. How can you help them? What in your skill set can help them address that? Then you're going to write a thank you note to for having a call with you. Thank you for having this call with me. And in this note, you're going to summarize the key points from your discussion. That's why you're taking notes, so that you can remember what you talked about. Then you're going to bring up the pain points that they talked about with some of your suggestions. You're also going to share some quantifiable and relevant things that you've accomplished in the past. I know you said that your website isn't converting people. I've designed high converting websites that converted X percentage of people in this time frame. If you don't have those stats, if you don't have something as concrete as that, you could say, hey, I know you said that you're having a hard time converting people on your website. I found this article from HubSpot that really talks to the points you were discussing. I think it might be helpful for you. That way, even if you're not the answer right then, you're helping them by sharing resources. Then lastly, you're going to explicitly state your interest in working with them and say you'd like to continue conversations. This is where a lot of people get hung up. They feel like it makes them look vulnerable to say, I want the job. I talk to a lot of people who are interviewing for jobs and they still feel hesitant to say, I want the job. But I promise, from a hiring manager's and a recruiter's perspective, this does not make you look vulnerable at all. It makes you look excited. It makes you look eager. It makes you look passionate. These are all things that you really want to convey. So make sure you're saying that in this follow-up email. So here's a great example of what one could look like. Thank you for our insightful conversation about your background and work at company. Your journey to climate is inspiring, and I'm thrilled about the potential. During our discussion, you highlighted how your company's current lack of branding and cohesive messaging is posing challenges in securing investors. I understand the intricacies of articulating complex scientific concepts to a non-technical audience. Having successfully led branding initiatives, crafting pitch decks, and securing significant funding in my previous role, Series A, 30 million. While I understand that you're not actively seeking an in-house marketing resource, you're saying that because you asked, I'd love to explore the possibility of contributing through a pro bono project or providing consulting support as needed. Once again, thank you for your time today. So you understand their pain points. You've sold yourself as a solution. You understand they're not hiring someone, but you still love to continue conversations and be involved. So even if they're not hiring right now, say 3 months down the line, they do need to hire someone, you are going to be top of mind for them. And that is so, so, so important. Here are a few examples of people that I have worked with directly who have employed this strategy and ended up getting a job. The first one is a generalist. She had experience in customer success and process improvement. She narrowed down her scope to cities, buildings, waste solutions, and sustainable mobility. Knowing that she was a generalist, she focused on smaller companies where her skills would be transferable. She got the job despite it never being posted. Another example I titled Unsolicited Advice. This person was a product professional. They didn't even have a resume. He said that he didn't want to make a resume because he wanted to focus all of his efforts on networking. So he researched companies where he thought he could make an impact, and he sent the founders suggestions on if he were in their shoes, how he would improve their product. He took a lot of time doing this. His messages were really well thought through, and he had an 80% response rate. So all the messages that he sent to founders, 80% of them responded, and 50% of those resulted in engaging conversations about opportunities, even though the job was never posted, even though he never applied to a job, and he got the job. So again, reflecting back on that, one of those very first slides of thinking like a recruiter and how you can pitch your skill set. This is what I do on a daily basis. This is what recruiters do on a daily basis. It is how so many people get jobs. So I know it's intimidating. I know it's hard to sell your skill set, but really, really think through how you can pitch yourself and how you can create opportunities for yourself. And even if it's not directly a job, you're still going to result in really engaging networking conversations that will help you with interviewing down the line. So tying it all together, what you're going to do to get a job through the hidden job market is you're going to research the climate space and learn as much as you can. You're going to pinpoint 3 climate solutions and dive really deep into them. You're going to create a market map of the companies that are working at the intersection of your parameters and these solutions. You're going to find opportunities, not just jobs. You're going to network within those companies and really sell your value. And then lastly, you're going to follow up and you're going to pitch yourself. Promise it's going to get easier with time. The more you practice your pitch, the less intimidating it's going to get. The more you network, the more referrals you're going to get. It's going to really start kind of working like a more well-oiled machine. If you learned something today, I do want to let you all know that I'm hosting a 4-hour in-depth boot camp with Tara in early November. The landing page isn't up yet, but if you want to learn more about this, feel free to put your email in this form I just dropped, and I'd be happy to send over some more information about that. But we have 8 or so minutes left for questions. I know I just gave you a lot of information. So if anyone has questions, I would love to answer them. Feel free to raise your hand and I can call on you if you'd rather talk, or you can just drop them in the chat and I will read them off of there. Alrighty, let me look at this chat to see what I've missed. I have not looked at it. Cool. Mike says on question on the industry specific skill set. I'm a professional TV writer who has worked on comedy shows for the last 15 years. My background is impressive, but my skill set tends to be more historic. I feel like I can't break through. Do people like me really dig down on what would be transferable, or sometimes do people just need to retrain, re-educate to transition? Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on like what you're hoping to get into. I'd say climate tech is obviously a highly technical field. So a lot of the more like writing jobs are a lot of like science writing or technical writing type positions. There are communications roles. I would say that you're going to have a really hard time right now where the industry is trying to find like just a writing role. So maybe if you could rescale and have more of like a communications or a marketing skill set, I'd say that'd be really helpful. But also, I'm not an expert in that field. I would really start having these networking conversations, trying to find people who are in similar roles to you and see what success they've had in the space so far. Perfect. Susan says, do you think putting the open to work banner on your LinkedIn profile is a good idea? Yeah, I do. I recently did a presentation with LinkedIn, and I might be misquoting this stat, but it's something like this. So I'll fact check myself later. But I think it's people who have the open to work banner get like 40% more messages from hiring managers and recruiters. So yes, if you are looking for a job and you want that to be public, like you're not currently employed, having the open to work banner on your profile picture is a really good idea. You have nothing to lose by doing that. And then also, if you are employed, so like you don't want your current boss to see that you're open to work, LinkedIn does have a setting so that you can tell the back end of LinkedIn that you're open to work without having to broadcast that to the world too. So I'd recommend doing that. Perfect. I see there's some more questions in the chat, but I'm tired of talking to myself. So I'm gonna have someone else come off. I don't know who was first. Was it you, Alexa? I think it might have been. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you so much for all of this great information. My question was about if you had any advice on how to balance a networking call where you pick their brain and show interest in them, but also have time to pitch yourself and sell your value in just 20 minutes. I find that the time goes too fast to do both of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely try to focus the first call on like learning about them, trying to make them feel good. Like that piece of advice is, I think, kind of like people don't give it the amount of importance that it deserves of like, your background is so impressive. How did you get to where you are in 5 years? Like, you must be doing something different. Like, when you make someone feel good, they are going to be far more inclined to help you. So, with that in mind, I would really try to focus the first call on what are you struggling with? How can I help you? Tell me about your journey. Like, I'd love to kind of be in your network. And then the follow up is a really good place to pitch your skill set. Obviously, tell them who you are and how you could help in that first call, but I'd spend the majority of the time trying to learn about them. And then it doesn't have to be one 20-minute call. You can continue to have conversations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Melissa, you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Natalie. This is great presentation. Thank you. And my question is around the emails or messages that we have with whether it's a recruiter or an internal person at a company we're networking with. I love the messages that you shared and kind of the information and detail that was in some of them. And I just wonder, I've heard some things too about like brevity is helpful because people are so busy. And
Yeah.
so I'm just wondering, like, how would you suggest we balance like being able to communicate what we need to, but also appreciating that, kind of there's such a scarcity of time and attention, especially in these kind of messages.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, like I get a lot of messages on a daily basis of here's 10 paragraphs on my background. And I think that's the key when we're talking about it's like articulating value and being, I'd say that's far more important than being brief. Like, yes, you don't want to send someone like a 15 paragraph message, but I would make it really clear that this is how I can help you. Like, this is why I'm messaging you. I'm not messaging you to give you the whole rundown on my entire career. I'm messaging you to tell you that I can help you, and here's how I can help you, and here's why I want to talk to you. Those messages are far more important than sending like a one sentence message. And that example workflow, like the connection request, you probably noticed like that message was really short and sweet. People are going to be far less likely to connect with you if it sounds like a sales pitch when you send a note with that connection request. However, if you have a short little one-liner of really interested in your background, let's connect, then you have some like back and forth conversation where you're delivering value. I found this resource, I think it'd be helpful. This is how I've helped other companies. I'd love to talk about some of my suggestions, love to learn about you. Those messages are going to make them make time for you because it proves that you can be helpful and that you're not just going to take up space on their calendar. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is it Tiziana?
Yes, you said it perfectly.
Great.
Thank you for this great presentation, great ideas. I have a couple super quick questions, hopefully. The first one will be, do you have some sort of, so I already been working in climate for about 7 years. So, but when you say climate solutions, I feel like that means so many things. So do you have some sort of place where we could, get a list? Because like I can think of a million different ones, but something that can help us like classify
Yep.
like what are the available options out there, because I feel like there's so much coming up that some I might not even be thinking about. So that would be my first, and the second one will be if you have any recommendations for any courses, certifications, because I'm noticing I'm not going to tell you my background for for the purpose of this call, but I'm noticing that a lot of companies require ESG certifications or certain specific certifications. So I was wondering if you have any suggestions on what seems to be like the most the ones that organization companies want the most.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, definitely. Tyler said it in the chat, but Project Drawdown, I would highly recommend their website. They have a climate solutions database. It has hundreds of solutions on there. I would start there, find the ones you're interested in, and then like start networking with people in those spaces. Work on Climate, MCJ Collective, Terra.do. Those are all really great like communities where you can learn more about people and meet people. They have like sub communities for those solutions. So yeah, Project Drawdown. I know ClimateScape is another one. Climate Tech List also has climate solutions listed out. I'd say those are all great places to start. And then market maps too, like finding like if you know you're interested in energy, like a energy market map and like looking at those different solutions. I'd say that's helpful. And in terms of courses, it sounds like you're interested in ESG. There's a Green Biz article. They recently renamed to Trellis, but it's Trellis. I think it's like called like 40 sustainability certificates you should look into. If you put that into Google, I'm sure it will pop up. That's a really, really helpful resource to know like what types of certificates would be helpful for your background. Also, I've heard really good things about 1.5 Academy. They help people like upskill in the ESG space. So I would start there. Cool. I have a few minutes, so I can stay on a little bit. I do want to recognize that we are at time. So if anyone needs to drop, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something. I will drop my LinkedIn in the chat right now. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. And if I don't get to your question, happy to chat back and forth on LinkedIn too. Again, I'll send the recording out and the slides. So keep an eye tuned for all of those resources. And yeah, thank you again. I really appreciated getting to know all of you. Cool, but again, I'll stay for a few more minutes if anyone has questions. Michelle, I think you might be next. I have a hard time seeing who's next, but I think it might be you, Michelle. You're the first on my screen.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Thank you for having us here. I was just wondering, in a situation where the company isn't ready to hire for your skill set, would offering volunteer hours be beneficial just to get more familiar with that company?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a pretty controversial topic of unpaid internships or doing pro bono work, and I think it is highly situational. If it is something that you have the capacity to take on, and if you can do it, I'd say 100%. I mean, these companies are busy. If you're offering to help them for free, I'd say it's a win-win for everybody. They get to see your work and how you can help. You get to get tangible climate experience on your resume. So certainly,
Mhm.
but I also don't think that that's the expectation. You certainly do not need to offer volunteer hours in order to get a job in this space. There are a lot of resources out there and abilities. Like you can get a job without having to do that, I guess is the bottom line. But yeah, it would certainly help.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Yari, you were next. And sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hi, yes, no problem. It's Jotty. Close enough. Ooh, sorry,
Oh, no worries.
cover it up. I just thank you for this. This has been super helpful. I have an entertainment marketing background, but I'm really interested in the intersection of climate and like climate work and fashion. So I'm
Yep.
curious what you recommend I should be like researching and looking up because this is the first time I've been a part of any conversation in that regard. So don't necessarily know where to start.
Yeah. I would definitely ever look into like the circular economy. I'm not sure if you've heard much about that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like really good information in like the like fashion and the amount of waste that goes into fashion and how you can kind of make it more sustainable. So like I'm immediately thinking of like the online thrift stores like Poshmark or any of those type things. Those could be interesting. Yeah, definitely just look into like the circular economy in terms of like food, I'm not food, fashion and like waste and all of that. Say that would be a good place to start. I'm trying to think of like other specific resources. Can't think of like any right now, but I would definitely join Work on Climate. They're a free Slack community with like thousands and thousands of people in there. I'm sure there is someone in that space that's working on that. So yeah, I would start there. And then on Project Drawdown, they do have one of those climate solutions for circular economy. So you can start like learning more about that too. I would start there.
Okay. And what was the Slack channel? I'm sorry.
Work on Climate.
Work on climate. Thank you
Yeah, of course.
so much.
Yeah. Alina.
Oh, hi, Natalie. Um, I wanted to ask more a question about like the recruiting process, meaning like, what about if someone has like gone through something like personal where it's like, from December of last year until June of this year, I was with my mom who had cancer and I did not want to look for work, but it's like a really large gap and then she passed in May. I was kind of writing that in my cover letter to be like, it's something that I went through, but then now I'm wondering if that's a good idea and just keep it to be like, okay, even though there is like a 7-month gap, it's or do companies want to understand why you haven't been working for such a long time?
Yeah, yeah. First, I'm really sorry to hear that. But I would say that I don't think it really matters. I'd say that times have changed quite a bit. Everyone knows that it's a really hard job market. So as someone in the recruiting world, I would not look at a 7-month gap and even really think twice about it. So I'd say one, if you want to address it, it will not hurt you to address it. But if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't want to have to like bring all of that up, you certainly don't need to in your cover letter. You could just say like taking a career break. You can even have that on your LinkedIn if you wanted to. I've seen that quite a bit. But I also don't think it would hurt to say I was caring for my mother. I needed to take some time off. Like I think, especially in like climate and impact focused space, people would not think twice about that. I'd say with a cover letter, I would dedicate the vast majority of the time to the things that you're good at. I'd say this is a bit of like a psychological thing, but a lot of times with cover letters, people tend to focus on their gaps. So like, I don't have this thing, and then this is why, but I would reframe that and be like, these are all the things that I do have. So point being, if you're viewing your 7-month break as something that's detrimental, you probably don't want to focus on that. You want to focus on the things that you're good at, the things that you can prove and then really expand on your resume. I would say like in interviews or like even if you're in networking conversations, say like I took a break for this reason to help my mom, but like I don't think it will be something people think of.
Oh, I
And
like that.
maybe
I
with
like that
layoffs.
about the cover letter, that where you just focus on like what you're good at. So you
Yeah,
don't really have to put also where you graduated from, right? Like, because I
right.
always have like, okay, I graduated from,
Yeah,
the master's in architecture, but you don't need to say those kinds of
no,
things.
no.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd say the same thing with like layoffs. I know it's not relevant to your situation, but a lot of people have been laid off in the last few years, and that's not because of anything they've done. It's been circumstantial. So like we look at layoffs now and we don't even think twice. Like it's, oh, that company lost funding. Oh, this company. So like a lot of the things that maybe were considered like not ideal a few years ago are not in the same boat at all. But again, I'm really sorry to hear about your mom, and I'll have you in my
Thank you.
thoughts.
Thank you
Yeah.
very
Yeah. Awesome, Melissa. And this will be our last question. I do have to run in a few minutes, but Melissa, you're muted if you're talking.
You know what? I'm sorry. I asked my question earlier
Oh,
and
perfect. I
I
thought you had
forgot to
another
put my
one.
hand down. Sorry about that.
Perfect. Well then, great. We will end on that. Awesome. Well, thank you all again so much for tuning in today. Again, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Happy to continue these conversations if you want to kickstart your networking. Hope you all have a great rest of your LA Climate Week and get to attend some of these sessions in person. Thanks.